Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jerich Show. I am always Javad Malik, and alongside me is the lovable, the affable Eric Crone.
Always nice to be here, right?
Yes. So today's topic, we are asking the question, how low will they go? And we're not talking about limbo.
Not at all. No, we're talking about scammers here today and the lengths that they'll go through to make a buck or two. And quite frankly, it's a little bit sad. It really is. So, Jawad, I know you had some things you wanted to talk about here.
Yeah. So first off, I'd like to get your take on this. When this whole pandemic broke out and everyone became really appreciative of the healthcare workers, a few of the big groups, they came out and said, we're not going to target hospitals or medical or research facilities with ransomware or anything like that. Has that come true?
Hardly. And ironically, yeah, they did. They came through and they said, even if we accidentally hit somebody, then we will, give them their decryption keys free and all that kind of stuff. And it sounded real beautiful. However, just this last week, I think it was, the Red Cross came out with a plea, with the please stop hitting these organizations in the midst of this freaking pandemic. And, looking at this, I mean, I was cynical about it when it first came out. I actually had a couple of comments out on the media on that because really, what are we going to do if they do attack, right? We have no recourse. There's no way to say, you promised that you wouldn't. And these are criminals, folks, and even though a couple of the larger groups came out and said that, there's so many little individual players running around, didn't really matter. And I think I called it. They just stepped right in and took it up. So they're still getting hit. They're still having to pay. There was even one that said, well, I think it was Pharma, and they were like, well, they're not actually like treating people. So we were okay with that one. I mean, there's all this kind of crap. These are shady people, and these are shady people that are not afraid to hit below the belt. So not really surprised.
Yeah, that's right. And you hit the nail on the head, said that these are criminals. And I've been reading this book called Never Split the Difference, and it's been written by a former FBI hostage negotiator. And one thing he talks about is compromise, and he goes, compromise is never a good deal. And one analogy he used in it, which I really like, is say you want to wear black shoes with your suit, and your wife says no, you wear brown shoes. If you compromise, you're going to wear one brown and one black shoe. That's a lose lose lose. Nobody comes out of that happy.
I've done that accidentally, and you're right. Nobody comes out of it happy.
So if you think you can compromise or reach some sort of agreement with criminals, then you're going to end up in a bad situation.
Yeah, absolutely. They have no scruples. It's why they're doing what they're doing anyways, right? And a lot of them justify it to themselves. A lot of them say, well, these people over here, they have tons of money. It's not going to hurt them or whatever. There's a lot of different angles to doing that, but it never ends. It never ceases to amaze me how low some folks go. So I know you got some other stuff too.
Yeah, that's right. So another thing that I was just made aware of just yesterday, and I was quite saddened by it all, was there's a I heard about it in the UK. I'm sure it's probably happening in other countries around the world. When there's been some cases where people have unfortunately died from coronavirus. A lot of these have been frontline care workers, and so sometimes their family set up a GoFundMe page to help cover sometimes the cost of their funeral in memory, or to help care for their family in their absence. And what some criminals have been doing, they've been scouring, finding these, and then cloning those GoFundMe pages. And then they've been reaching out on Facebook. They've been cloning their Facebook accounts. They've been reaching out to friends and family and extended people, say, please donate generously to this person that has died. And that money just goes directly to the scammers.
It doesn't surprise me. It does sadden me, and it's terrible. But what we know is criminals are always looking for a reason to do this. We see it in natural disasters, we see it in man made disasters, right? Anytime something goes on, they're throwing up fake charities to try to divert money. So people are trying to, they're taking what they have and giving it to somebody to help. And the scammers are just running around and, posting pictures in Bentleys and flexing all over the place about how much money they're making, right? It's absolutely disgusting, but we see it all the time. We see it every time there's a major disaster. They're playing off that.
Yep. Yep. And the final, I suppose, the third and final instance of how low will they go, we go over to your side of the pond to Las Vegas, where there's a couple, Timothy and Letitia Harron, and they created a fake healthcare company based in North Carolina. They then went through obituaries of recently deceased people. Uh, they then used a Medicaid eligibility tool to find out if the dead person had a Medicare ID number. And then using the number, they back billed Medicare for services they provide to the deceased prior to them dying. And the deceased couldn't challenge it because they're deceased, and the family didn't know because no money's coming out of their own pocket.
Wow.
And they made out they from Medicaid they got $13 million.
$13 million just by fake billing for people that have passed away. And no, that's brilliant though, because the family doesn't know. It's not coming out of their pocket. Again, the mentality here being, oh, it's coming out of the big machine, right? That's probably how it's being justified. And of course, coming out of Vegas, our hub of righteous behavior here in the U.S. It doesn't surprise me a bit. But I mean that's really low. But you know what? It also shows a flaw in the system where you're able to go in there and get that information that's needed to turn around and bill for it. So there's something wrong in the system there that's allowing them to get the information or the numbers that they need to be able to turn around and now bill the state or the country or whoever it is that's paying these things for that. So that's kind of an interesting little hole they had there.
Yeah, and the fact that they're able to register a company as a medical care company without any due diligence or apparently taking place.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that they would have to have some sort of certifications or something like that along there in order to deal in that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, it reminds me a little bit of what was happening here a couple of years ago with some tax scams, where you could go online and pull up like previous tax information, which was the information needed to log in and file the current taxes, which were then being filed fraudulently and getting a refund because they could get the information out of the old system using some lesser amount of information. And it was a pretty common thing for a little while. Now the IRS shut that down, but it's interesting how that information can be used. And it is pretty low though, going after deceased folks and just using that. But they're probably figuring it's almost a victimless crime again because it's it's impacting Medicare or whatever. But that money comes from somewhere and it has to go somewhere too, and so that does take out of the coffers. And 13 million, that's quite a bit. Now, how did they get busted?
This is the best part. They got busted by flexing on the gram, I believe is what the kids call it. So they
Those kids these days.
yeah, they posted pictures of them eating out at fine restaurants, going to town at Tiffany's and Co, and even buying or traveling on a private jet.
Wow.
The sad thing about this, the really sad thing about this, is that they only have like 635 followers on Instagram.
Wow.
So who are you flexing for?
But at least one was a Fed.
Exactly. And he has like 7 hashtags in his bio. They're
Wow.
entrepreneur, author, husband, traveler, jet setter, wine connoisseur. And then in his pictures, he uses the caption millionaire, hashtag millionaire. I think if someone uses the hashtag millionaire, they're probably not a millionaire.
Yeah, there was just recently a rapper that got busted too for doing a bunch of flexing on Instagram and all that about, all the money he's making, and they came back. I think it was drugs. So the moral of the story is, folks, if you're going to make money hand over fist, keep it private, right? Enjoy your time privately. We're not all Momfa here, the big scammer that got busted over in Nigeria. He had all those flex pictures. I don't know if you saw him or not, but all these pictures of him with the Rolls and the Bentleys and the dude. Oh my gosh. So if you need to learn a lesson from this episode, that's probably it. Don't flex if you're ripping people off.
Yep. So this is the Jerich Show, providing consumer advice to the criminals as well as the victims. So
Hey, we're equal opportunity, right? We got to know both sides in order to defend against it. So, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for those topics this week, Javvad. That was actually really interesting, and I think we've determined that they will go pretty damn low in order to do these kind of scams. So, having said that, you want to close us out?
yep. In the words of Demolition Man, send a maniac to catch a maniac.
All right. Take care, everyone, and have a good week. We'll see you next week with another episode of The Jerich Show.